want to talk about what went down in Alaska. According to Donald Trump, it was Russia. He was headed to Russia, but it was actually Alaska. It was very interesting to see when Putin was walking down the red carpet, bro. Donald Trump was like a giddy schoolgirl. He's like, and clapping, and I was like, what is this guy doing? It was a totally different feel, right? So when Zelensky comes, they pretty much spit on him and they tell him to sit down. Putin shows up, boy, it's a party. A lot of things went down, and I want your thoughts on it. I'm sure we will have radically different thoughts on this, but apparently a ceasefire is not on the table anymore. That Donald Trump doesn't care about a ceasefire, which was the stated goal. And he said there would be big consequences for Russia if they didn't come out of this meeting, conference, whatever you want to call it, if they didn't come out of it with an agreement. They didn't. Well, maybe they did, but it's like, hey, Zelensky needs to give up the entire, all the territories that were invaded and taken over by Russia. I don't know. There was supposed to be a ceasefire, and Donald Trump has pulled away from it. He says, nope, no more ceasefire. All Vladimir Putin had to do was say, Mr. President, your hair is fantastic. Your voice is fantastic. And let me tell you something. The 2020 election, it was absolutely rigged 100%. And if you were president, Mr. Trump, if you were president, when I decided to move in on Ukraine, I wouldn't have done it. Absolutely not. I'm very afraid of you, Mr. Trump. That's all it took. Probably told him he deserved a Nobel Peace Prize. These people have figured out Donald Trump. He's being played like a fiddle right now. It is so evident. So, and I've been giving this advice to world leaders right here on Unplugged for quite some time. Don Jeffries also, he's been saying, this is what you need to do to butter this guy up. So Vladimir Putin clearly listens to America Unplugged. And he decided, yes, they definitely rigged the 2020 election, sir. And for sure, you are the greatest president. And I would have never invaded Ukraine if you were in power. And boom, switched up just like that. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on here. Tony Arterburn, the wisest of all the wolves. Give us your perspective on this.
Well, my initial perspective is that war is the ultimate failure of politics. Once you just into war, it's you failed on every other front. And like Winston Churchill said, more jaw, less war. And I like to see things like this. I've been wondering for many years where the hell our summits are. We used to have, especially during the Cold War, Don knows this very well. We used to have all sorts of, the SALT treaty that Nixon signed, or the atmospheric nuclear test ban that Kennedy did, and Khrushchev, rode in an open car with Eisenhower during the height of the Cold War. For some reason, we just stopped talking to people. And so this is a departure from whatever was going on the last 5 or 6 years, where we just didn't do anything anymore except escalate. And so I like to see, and I don't, obviously this is politics and there's hidden meaning and language all throughout this, but, and that's a murky thing too. You get into whatever the Ukraine-Russia conflict is, if you just show up in 2022 and wonder why Russia isn't, crossing into Ukraine territory, you think, wow, what an aggressor. And then you go back and look at the 2014 coup d'etat that was run by the Central Intelligence Agency and NATO to overthrow a democratically elected leader in Ukraine who fled to Russia. And then again, look at the elections that happened. If you support democracy, the people in the Donbass want to be in Russian sovereign territory. They're Russian speaking and see themselves as Russian. This is a very murky situation. This is even, it's even less, there's less differences in this region between the United States and Mexico by far. I mean, these once they were the same country, they were the Soviet Union. Ukraine at one time, this is the breadbasket of Europe, and that at one time was it held a great nuclear arsenal. They were convinced to give them up, for independence at the end of the breakup of the Soviet Union. So it's a complicated history, and we've expanded NATO. We've had biolabs and ran intelligence operations and used Ukraine as a a boondoggle type kitty just to extract money laundering and other things like Burisma and all the stuff that went through. Every politician in the U.S. somehow has some weird connection to Ukraine. If you look, remember the Colonel Vindman who showed up to talk about it, the quid pro quo and the Trump impeachment hearings. Somehow he's Ukrainian. There's so much weird stuff with this. So I like to see any inroads that we can to peace. My criticisms are, why did it take so long? The other Trump, you're right. He's talked about a ceasefire. He's talked about, well, he also told the people of Tehran, 11 million people, to evacuate. I don't know if people, we've somehow forgotten that, by the way. That was, 30, 45 days ago. That's unprecedented. Or, tweeting out all caps unconditional surrender to Iran. So it's hard to take anything seriously if you call for something and then you say you're going to bring peace, or you criticize Zelensky. Remember, we dressed down Zelensky too. That's another thing that happened that people, I don't know if they're remembering. We dressed him down, then we built him back up. Yeah. So where do we actually stand? It's schizophrenic at best, malevolent at worst, and I'm hoping for peace, and looks like we might have made some progress, but in my opinion, this thing should have ended as soon as he took office. You just stop funding the deal in Ukraine, and you could bring something to the table. You could show some force to say, we're not letting you go any further, which I don't. If Russia truly, if you study geopolitics at all, if Russia wanted to take Ukraine, it could do it in 24 hours. That's not in question here. What's in question is the territories, whether or not the Russian-speaking territories go back into Russia's fold or are kept, and that's it. And whether or not Ukraine joins NATO is an existential threat to Russia.
To say that Russia could take over Ukraine in 24 hours is almost as laughable as saying that Donald Trump is going to solve this war in 24 hours. It's not a thing. That's just zero. I mean, if it could have happened, it would have happened, and it has not happened. And
I just don't think that's been his goal. The goal has never been to occupy Ukraine. I mean, much like we could take Iraq. I mean, Ukraine can't put up. I mean, it can, obviously, with weapons and funding. And I'm talking about at the beginning of the war. You go back to 2022. There was NATO buildup. There was other things, and lots of reinforcements that Ukraine was getting in preparation for this. They were goaded into. Russia was goaded into invading. But I don't think they would have a problem, really, if they wanted to completely conquer Ukraine. They could. I don't think. Ukraine doesn't have the sophistication that Russia has. But this has been a bloody war on both sides, hundreds of thousands. It's an awful, awful bloodletting.
Absolutely, brother. I lost my train of thought. I had something more to say. It'll come back to me at some point. I was reading Twisted's post, and it just left.
Prince a subscriber, right on.
Yeah, I believe it. He certainly watches America Unplugged. What's up, Don? Give us your thoughts on everything that's going down.
Well, like Tony, I do remember a lot of summits that used to be standard, but diplomacy has gone the way of the dodo for a long time. I don't know. Did George W. Bush ever? Was there any diplomacy there, or under Obama? I don't really. And I think if you remember, one of the highlights of Trump's first administration was when he held a summit with Putin, and this was before Ukraine, and he was blasted by everybody. Everybody hated it. And I said, I don't understand this. But why would you want? But it's because everybody pretty much prefers war to diplomacy now. Nobody likes diplomacy. It doesn't fit in with our idiocracy. It's better just to Trump goes as we, the guy here, it just goes from all caps, to something like this. But that's Trumpenstein. This doesn't fit in with anything he's been doing since he's been in office, to suddenly kind of soften up and let's talk and that kind of thing. And it's I don't think it's going to mean anything but like Tony, I would think that Russia could easily roll over Ukraine if they want. I don't know what their objective is. It's been pretty stupid because a lot of people have died, but it's very similar to what both of the countries did, what we and Russia both did in Afghanistan. you'd think we'd be able to, to defeat Afghanistan. And look at what we did in Vietnam. And Vietnam's a tiny postage. I mean, and we get embroiled and we left with our tail between our legs. I mean, that's part. I don't think for a second that we couldn't have beaten them if we didn't want. But what was the objective? I don't know. I don't know if the objective is in any war. World War II is the last war that had an objective where it looked like both sides were trying to win. I guess. Although you can question Hitler, going into the Moscow winter, but up until that point, it looked like both teams. But since then, Korea, look what happened with Douglas MacArthur and Harry Truman. I mean, MacArthur actually tried to go past the demarcation zones, whatever nonsense they came up with, to try to actually win. And Truman said, no, come back here, no military power or civilian. And of course, the public mostly supported him because they didn't want a military dictatorship. But MacArthur was actually attempting to win a war. I'm against all war, but if you're in a war, I don't understand why you aren't trying to win. And so Putin's following our own kind of no-win nonsense that we do. But I have to think that it's a good thing. And I know, of course, Trump will be accused of being Putin's puppets. And Putin is twisted notes. He's a well-known subscriber to my Substack, so he's got something going on there. I think this is a distraction because Trump could easily just look at all the stuff Trump has said, the threats he's made to Russia, giving them timelines, and then he backs off, and this is what he does, and it's why I call it the Trumpenstein Project, and maybe I call it the Putin Project too, because I really am not sure what his objective here is either, but. I always want to see peace. So and I'm not going to complain about, world leaders talking and, not getting in a cage match, which, that's still what some people want. So maybe at some point, we'll stage that cage match on the White House lawn that Trump has talked about.
Well, they're definitely going to do that. But what I find incredibly interesting is when the cage match breaks out with Zelensky, everybody's happy about it here in the alternative media. When there's no cage match with Putin, like, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. That's cool. That's really weird to me. It's like a double standard, right? So if we're going to not want, the knockdown dragouts and have some actual diplomacy, let's hold the same standard from when somebody that walks into the White House that you don't like, let's hold that same standard for that. With that Zelensky thing that went down months ago was a complete and total disaster. Totally different approach with Putin because Donald Trump has a man crush on him. And let's remember also when we talk about the Russian aggression towards the Ukraine, right? Vladimir Putin has said time and time and time again that he does not respect Ukraine as a country and he wants to reunite all the territories. That is his stated goal. We can't look past that. He has said it and he has said it over and over again. It's what he wants to do. Zelensky wanted a ceasefire. He had agreed to terms. Putin went right over that and said, nope, we're not doing that. Continues to bomb Ukraine. And then he told Donald Trump right now, just played him. I mean, come on. Like, if this was Joe Biden that got played like this, we'd be all over it. But it's not. It's Donald Trump. So we're like, oh, let's see what develops. He just told him straight up. He's like, yeah, sure. Why would Putin even bring up the 2020 election? Why would Putin bring up, why would he say, if you were president, I wouldn't have invaded? Does that come up naturally in conversation? Why would I tell somebody like it just doesn't make sense? So clearly he was trying to stroke this guy's ego. It's not very difficult to understand how Stephen Miller has taken over this administration. It's not very difficult to understand what needs to be done to this guy in order to manipulate him. And that's what Putin has done. Chris Buckham in the chat is like grade A mystery level schools of a dumbass. I just wanted to say that. Okay. Tony, take it away, buddy. What do you have to say? I know you have a different view on this. I know you really don't like
Zelensky,
right?
I don't like. So I think the reason that there's this dichotomy between like what Putin represents and what Zelensky represents is these are opposing ideas. Zelensky represents continued war without any off ramps to peace. He's never called for any sort of summit. He's never called for it, to my knowledge. And it's always been a further pressing of victimization. In order to do great evil, you first have to see yourself as a victim. And that he sets in that role very well. And this has been a continuation and agitation the entire time. So, and again, you may be right about the ethno-nationalism in the back of Putin's mind about reunifying, the Russian-speaking peoples. We've had that here in the U.S. We've, the Churchill wrote about the history of the English-speaking peoples because he saw, England as an extension of America and vice versa. I don't necessarily see it that way, but the role of ethno-nationalism happening in Europe in a faraway place is really none of our business anyway. So, I mean, it's not our quarrel whether or not that is the case, which I think with all the involvement and I'm glad Don agreed with me. I think that they've held back. I mean, I don't think Russia is like bringing the full force and might of the Red Army. I don't think they're really doing that. I think that it's just, I think it's a stalemate. I think it's a proxy war. And it's a way for NATO and the military industrial complex and the neocons and those who do not want peace at all. We could have had peace a long time ago in this conflict. Hundreds of thousands have been killed. There's been billions and billions wasted. It's a tragedy of epic proportions because especially the Biden administration. The Biden administration was so antagonistic to all of this. And Don brought up that great point of when Trump first had a meeting with Russia. I think they were in Iceland, and Putin gave Trump a soccer ball, and somehow the soccer ball had cameras or something. It had microphones. It was a secret spy soccer ball, and I mean, I don't know what it is about the establishment other than they need. And I think this goes deeper. It goes back to the Wolfowitz Memorandum of 1992 and Paul Wolfowitz. They drew up a plan after the fall of the Soviet Union, and we had this. I mean, we pissed it away. We had this massive generational peace that our fathers and grandfathers had won for us, and our grandmothers too. I mean, they had won this peace for us, and we squandered it because we put neocons like Paul Wolfowitz in the defense establishment. He wrote the Wolfowitz Memorandum, and it puts Russia as the top enemy. Now, why would you put Russia at the top enemy in 1992 and say that you're going to, dominate the region, and then no matter what they do, you'll keep them boxed in, destroying all goodwill? That memo was leaked, by the way. I mean, the Russians know about the Wolfowitz Memorandum, which was the subjugation of Russia by the United States and not opening inroads. We created whatever Putin is. This is an extension of our arrogance. And instead of having a peace post-Cold War, we should have. Even Gore Vidal was calling for an economic alliance with Russia after the Cold War ended. We did none of that. We just created another boogeyman because that's what we needed.
Yes.
Same thing we've done with China. We created this. So that's why the defense establishment and the, cocktail party weirdos in Washington, D.C., with all of their highfalutin degrees and everything, they still don't know what we know here on this panel is that it's fake. And then you created something just so you could fight it, but unfortunately it has real consequences for average people. So that's why I'm for peace, and I think Zelensky is an evil puppet.
Let's talk about peace after this. Go ahead, Don.
No, and I certainly agree with Tony, but the parallels between Putin and Hitler are many in terms of how they're being portrayed. If you go back to 1939 when Hitler invaded Poland, people, again, if you know historically what happened under the Treaty of Versailles, for the first time in history, a defeated nation was, first of all, given financial reparations. And I've talked many times about how Germany did not stop paying reparations. Talk about reparations until 2010 from World War I. That's outrageous. No victor had ever said, you know what, we not only kicked your ass in the war, we're going to make you pay us for, in this case, 80 years or something like that. So unprecedented. And they took lots of German territory was taken from Germany after that. And we had a young Herbert Hoover, who was the only one at the Treaty of Versailles who was turned off by this. Said, this isn't right. What are we doing here? But, but most of the people there, you had the typical bankers and everything, were pushing for this. So whatever Hitler was, and I think he was, tool of the. I think Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler tells the story of him, but I think he's got a lot of fans here, probably in this chat room. What he was, it was unfair what they did to Germany. And so he had a natural audience when he came to power. He could easily talk about, not to mention the disproportionate power of Jews in that Germany at that time. He could point to that accurately, and you're kind of seeing that happening now too. But when he, if Hitler had died before 1939, he would probably go down in history as Germany's greatest leader because he revitalized them. He built the Autobahn. They had a worse depression than the United States did. But when he invaded Poland, it was saying, "Oh, this is aggressive." But he had the same kind of argument Putin had, where he was trying to free former German people that was occupied territory because of the Treaty of Versailles. So was right. And then after that, when he went into France and all that, then I don't know what was going on. I think that was part of the Hitler project or whatever you want. I think he was following orders and doing, really ridiculous stuff. But his initial foray there had a point. And Putin, he's obviously not Hitler, but it's the same kind of thing. He was going to try to retrieve or take back what had been historically Russian, as Tony mentioned, the people in that area want to be part of Russia. So let's have government, by consent, right? That's what we were founded on. But whatever, I don't understand it. But as Tony also mentioned, this is why I'm an isolationist because well, this is none of our business. It's the whole thing. Why are we? I don't even know why we need to hold a summit. But I like the fact they're trying diplomacy instead of anything else. Leave it alone. It's not. I don't even care if people want to say Zelensky in Ukraine is right. It's fine. It's like a football game. Root for who you want to. We have no rooting interest in it, and we've given so many billions to one side. It's absurd. That doesn't mean I want to give billions to Russia, but we have no interest there. We should back off and just continue to try to tell both of them, hey, let's try peace. Let's do that. But we should. Why are we involved there? Obviously, it hasn't worked. We haven't been able to do it. But once again, it distracts us from the condition of this country. We look around and the fact that we haven't touched the infrastructure in 60 years and we still have this massive corruption everywhere that nobody's talking about. You got people, and we'll go into segue into the next subject where you have all the homeless people sleeping on the streets and stuff, that we have problems here at home. I don't care what happens with Ukraine and Russia, just like I don't care what happens. I feel for the Palestinians. I know Zionism cannot be defended, and Israel should have never been created on another people's land. But I don't. At this point, I want to withdraw. I just want to withdraw, and let's fix our own problems first. So any of these foreign issues and a boogeyman like Putin, what is Putin? Putin is, again, they use some of the exact same coded language against him they used on Hitler and so many other people. That he said this and that. I don't know what he is. I do know that he put an arrest warrant out for any Rothschilds that showed up in Russia, and he got rid of all the GMO products. And he's publicly said our government killed JFK. So he's right on at least three things. He sounds better than most of our politicians in that regard. But I want to take care of our own problems first.
All right, 100. Do we know if Putin ever did any of those things? Or is that more right wing lore?
I don't
I'm
know.
asking. I literally don't know. I am asking.
That's all I hear. I don't know.
Right. I have no idea.
I've heard the same things or read the same things. It's, I don't speak Russian and I'm not there, so it's hard to. Can you verify that? I think that may be a talking. You could be right, Billy. That could be a talking point, but to capture the alt-right or something to back Putin. I've by the way, for the record, I worked with the Russian military on the border of Kosovo as a 20-year-old kid, and the Russian paratroopers who were there, and they just by the way, that was an interesting piece of history. If you were around for that, they just rolled in. They didn't ask permission. They're not NATO. But when Clinton bombed Serbia for 78 days and we started setting up that protectorate of, the Kosovo territory, which, by the way, Kosovo to the Serbs is like what Jerusalem is to the Jews, and we just took it away from them. So we had this, but Putin rolled his army down as soon as we came in, and that we just met them there. There was no agreement. There was no communication. And I got to work with them a great deal. You don't want to fight those guys. And I was always fascinated with their history, and I ever since then I'd wondered why we didn't, as a 20-year-old, this is the year 2000, I wondered why we didn't have an alliance with them of some kind, why we didn't do more with them, because it seemed to work so well in that informal environment between a couple of sets of paratroopers. We did really well working together. So I wondered why we couldn't do that on a big scale. And the reason is because there's no money in that. And when you look at what Ukraine represents, it represents corruption. Unfortunately, not the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainian people are wonderful, and I've met lots of Ukrainian people, and so it's a beautiful place and rich heritage, and they've gone through a lot. But unfortunately, they have so much Western control, and I think that's what the aversion is. It'd be like having extreme Chinese control in Mexico. And what they're able to do right there to antagonize us just over the border. It'd be unacceptable in any past. I don't know what we do now, because who knows what America does anymore. But in past realities, that we would have not stood for it. So, I'm not a Russophile, just for the record, but I do understand, I think, their proud history, what they represent, and the defense establishment and the Luciferian neocon establishment that has gone after them to try to create this enemy.
All right. Do we want to actually let's talk about what is it, peace, real quick, because I think this is another thing. This dude is trying to claim he's making phone calls trying to get people to nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, it's crazy. Like I don't know what the deal is with this dude. So I think he does want peace, but what is peace? Like, it's peace down the barrel of a gun. That's not peace. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people don't resonate with the Ukrainians here or whatever, but that's Ukrainian land. Listen, I'm sorry. If we're going to go through this, that means I can walk into your home and hold you at gunpoint and say, this living room is freaking mine. I'm doing that. And then the police officers come in to try to sort things out and say, all right, we're going to fix this. You can keep the living room. No problem. And then everything else, it goes back to normal. Cool. And that's peace. That's not peace.
But that would be an analogy, Billy Ray, if whoever it is came in had actually owned your home before, or they had a history there, because it's the same thing. This is the problem with Israel and
we can say the same thing about America, Don. The hypocrisy is incredible.
We could.
Right.
You can say the
same thing about America, and we're the ones here that are well, not everybody. It's just the right and the alt-right that are over here pushing this narrative or whatever, and saying that, oh yeah, like, I mean, that was originally Russian land. Who did this land belong to? We can chop it apart. You're right. But I think that you can say that about anywhere in the world. Who was originally anywhere first? And this is the problem with Israel and Gaza. That was Palestinian land. We put them there. So the problem goes back to that. And they said exactly what you said about the people going into your kitchen. Only they said, this is our land. God gave it to us. My religion tells me this belongs to us. And that set a terrible precedent, obviously. But I think in the case of Putin, what Tony talked about too, about his justifiable concerns about having NATO perhaps having missiles that close to his border, would be the same thing that that was closer than what we found during the Cuban Missile Crisis with Cuba, where everybody understood why we were in, and if they had them in Mexico, it would be the same kind of thing. So I think, but again, we get so invested in this. I don't care. That's why I wish we would pay attention to domestic policy, and why I keep going back to my boy Huey Long. Read his speeches. Nothing but domestic policy. All he talked about was Louisiana's problems and America's problems. Nobody does that anymore. It's all about what's going on here, what's going on there. And we don't know, like you said, Billy Ray, about Putin and the Rothschilds and all that stuff. That's all I hear that from sources that I trust on some things. But we don't know. I don't know. I'm not there. Just like in my Substack, I get hundreds of comments on everything I write. And I have several people that have been to China. Every one of them talks to me about how much better life is in China than it is here. I think of China as this terrible place. They say, no, of course they have surveillance, but you have surveillance here, and they care more about the people. Now, I don't know, maybe they're all lying.
I don't know. And they claim it's much cleaner and life is just generally better. I don't know. I haven't lived in any other country, but I do know this is a shithole. No, and we're not doing anything with it. So I don't. Maybe all this. I don't know what the third world countries are really like, but I can see my own country turning third world. And the last thing we have to be concerned about is Zelensky, Putin, or anybody else, Netanyahu, anybody. I don't care about any of those people. I don't want to go to war with any of them. But just hey, more power to you. That's all. But right now we got stuff to clean up here. So they get the masses distracted with this stuff. And people that say, has stand with Ukraine that don't know anything about Ukraine. They couldn't find it on a map, but it becomes a chic thing to do. And same thing when it was Kuwait. Nobody knew where Kuwait was, but they're ready to send their firstborn in a heartbeat to go die for it. They don't even know what it is. I mean, it's just show some, intelligence for once. We stop believing all this nonsense. And if people just stopped responding to it, if everybody just, if no one paid attention to it and said, take care of our problems first, you had a real America First movement, then they couldn't keep trotting this stuff out, but it works. They get people on both sides rooting for their teams and saying what we should do. And the bottom line is we get involved. We send tons of money to these places. And yet we have people living on the street. People here can't get benefits. We have programs being cut. Well, we can't afford that anymore. We can't afford to fix that pothole. Where's the money going to come from? Where did the last payment to Ukraine come from? Where did that come from? You didn't have to raise the gas tax for that. But this is the problem. That's why we need a real, and that's why Trump's America First rhetoric is exciting to hear. It's just nice to see him, display it in practice.
Look at this. Look at Walter Grace, one of the
Yeah.
founding members of my fan club. There's another one that loves me. Says this dumb shit. It belongs to whomever is strong enough to take it and hold it. Keep that energy when somebody runs into your home, buddy. Keep that energy. Ridiculous. This is the ridiculous, childish shit that got us into this problem in the fucking first place.
Oh, and there's people that believe that. There are people that's how they talk about in terms of and when we talk about La Raza in Mexico, I've written a lot about that. I had to reassess that because La Raza, I think is seems like an America hating group, but if you look into the U.S. Mexican War in 1848, we did steal a lot of land. So they have a point. So I understand why they're doing that. But again, that happens. War is about taking over conquered territory. It used to be anyhow. I don't know what it's about now. It's about what you see going on in Russia, Ukraine, where they're just kind of screwing around and people are dying and it doesn't seem to be any reason. But that has always been that way. It's unfortunate. But, when you go back as far back as time began, who was at any particular spot first? I don't know. It's hard to say. That's why it's ridiculous to continue to hear people say, "Well, this was the homeland of the Jews," and we're going back there. No, that's ridiculous. That you can't just displace people doing that, and that's the source of the problem.
I totally agree, 100% with that. Totally agree, and that's another part of this whole massive crap that we're in because of what was done there after 48. Regardless of that, we don't have too much time. I want to ask you guys this. Like I was, leading up to the elections and seeing what the way America was going. People, a lot of smart people would say, that the nation's about to break apart, right? And people are gonna, states are gonna secede. And I didn't see it. I was like, no, we're not getting there. But at this point, it's at least in the conversation that could happen, in my opinion. And it's sad because I definitely don't want the United States to go the way of the USSR, but the division is so deep. People think so differently and everybody's so entrenched in their beliefs. I don't know if this is reconcilable. Maybe I'm talking out of ignorance because I've only been alive 45 years, but right now, like I don't know how this changes. And it is two different countries. It's two different countries, two different realities. What do you think, Tony? Is this a possibility, bro?
I always think it's a possibility. It depends on sociological and economic conditions. If economic conditions worsen and we continue to grow apart, all of these issues that are external are driving wedges between us. We haven't been this divided since 1860, so this is possible. But the problem is, it's not geographic necessarily anymore. This is a secession of the heart, as Pat Buchanan called it. Like, we just have completely diametrically opposed ideas about existing, and it's not just one side or the other, is multiple factions now. So what does America represent? People say that diversity is our strength, but that's never been the case in any civilization in the history of mankind. As a matter of fact, civilizations that have cohesive culture are the strongest one, language, tradition, history, heroes, things like that. And I think that's one of the reasons that the establishment despises Russia so much, is because they've kept their language and their continuity of culture for the most part, and haven't been eaten away like most of it, the rest of Europe, with waves of migration and other things, and depopulation. They bit down on the pill of depopulation. As a matter of fact, Russia loses about 2 million people net per year in population. So they have a population that'll be the size of what the United States population was in 1947 here very soon. I think it's within the next 20 years. So they're a very proud people, but they've also they bought into a lot of the Western stuff, but they didn't do a lot of what else that Europe did, and changed the makeup of their country through immigration.
Yeah.
We did that too. And so it's hard to say what'll happen to us when we've become what Teddy Roosevelt called a polyglot boarding house for the world when it comes to so many other things. So who knows? I hope not, but I think it would happen. I think it would be precipitated, Billy, by an economic issue. And if there's states like Texas, like say Texas wants to secede. And by the way, we're in this whole discussion about Ukraine and ethno-nationalism and Russia. I'm for the smaller states. Let Hong Kong be independent. Let the Catalonians in Spain be independent. Let Scotland be independent. I like smaller country. I like smaller territories. I'm like Thomas Jefferson. I think that, that's really the only place that liberty can exist. So I'd be all about it. As long as there's trade across borders and other things, maybe that's the only way. But, especially with the United States and in the trouble that it's in right now, as far as the federal government's concerned, and the overstretched empire. We crossed over $37 trillion in debt this last week. And as I read on the David Knight show, in 1971, when we went off the gold standard, the debt of the U.S. was $370 billion. So we're 37 trillion to 370 billion. That's a bit of an increase in the debt, isn't it, Don?
Absolutely. As Jackson Baird said, you can't protect your land. You find out you never really owned it. And yeah, that's a philosophy. That's basically survival of the fittest. That's the evolutionary credo. If your might makes right.
But is it right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
We are supposed to be highly evolved creatures. But there was a message that went out that said, Tony and Don, that was from me. Let's not get it mistaken. With love.
Yeah.
On the chat for you guys. By the way. But when do we get to a point where that's not it? We're supposed to separate ourselves from animals, right? Survival of the strongest, right? No. We're not doing that. We are supposed to be living in the highest echelon of human existence. And we're supposed to be, if you come in here and just take my stuff at gunpoint or by force, by any means, right? Because I couldn't hold it no longer belongs to me. What kind of mentality is that? Where is the evolutionary maturity in people that have that train of thought? Right. We need to abandon this. Otherwise, we are a failed experiment. The human race is a failed experiment. If we've come this far and we still think that. Go ahead, Tom.
I definitely don't think that, by the way.
No, I know you. I know. I'm referring to people in the chat. I know. I know you guys.
But well, but that's basically evolution in a nutshell. They don't frame it that way. It's survival of the fittest. If you're because theoretically carried to its logical conclusion, if you're in a neighborhood, if there's a really big tough guy and he's armed like you are or whatever, and he wants your wife, he wants your daughter or whatever, if he can take it, it's like caveman days. Just throw her over your shoulder. I mean, that
Right.
when you get to that, or if he wants your possession, "Hey, I want your car. I like your car better than mine. I'm going to take it.
Right.
Can you stop me?" No, you can't physically stop 'em, and that's what the danger in anarchy would be. Although I would argue that you didn't get the police too much to help you anyhow, because they're so corrupt. But that's the problem. That's why I oppose evolution so strongly, because I don't think might should ever make right. But we do devolve, and it's barbarity, because then basically you're running around and it's whoever is the biggest and the strongest, not necessarily the smartest, that they could do it. So it's very, very dangerous thinking. But you're right about we do need we have a marriage that we have irreconcilable differences, no question about it. And Trump is kind of been the other woman. He's contributed to this and really divided the country completely. The Trumpistine project in this, but you see, you have people like on my side, and I'm not really left or right, but culturally, I've had to turn more to the right because of the crazy woke stuff. But you're going to have millions of people like me that you're never going to convince them that it's a good thing to have kids, transition to another sex. You're never going to convince them that it's a good thing that they're claimed that there's 57 genders or men can have babies. Culture, that's never that just that issue alone. I don't care how many celebrities say it and how many people try to, indoctrinate your kids. At least probably 100 million are never going to accept that. So on that issue alone, we're completely at odds. And what we don't have right now during the Civil War, there were foundational issues that everybody agreed on. God, for instance, almost everybody believed in God. The people that didn't were such a small faction that they didn't matter. They had no power. Now, God is a dividing principle of self. That's not foundational. You have millions and millions of people who talk about you crazy magician in the sky and ridicule you for it. I have it happen to me all the time. So that we don't have that. We don't even know when life begins. People different. Well, what does life mean? People don't think life is sacred. Not everybody agrees on that. So we don't have a single foundational issue where we can all agree. Okay, we all agree on this. There's not one. I don't know how you can have a civilization without any foundational principles that you agree on. And right now, we don't have any. So I think secession would be the best way, but it's never going to happen because, first of all, the people that misrule us want this. They want the division. So if we go into societies where everybody stops bickering and pretty much agrees with it, then the leaders, I guess their leaders can't do the kind of things they do now because there's no way they can divide the people. So they get a lot out of this right now. It's divide and conquer strategy, and it's as old as time itself. But yeah, I would love to have a secession, but I just don't think that they would ever allow it to happen.
And that's the sad part. We've been talking about the division for quite some time. When we started America Unplugged, it was based on the division, and they have successfully pulled this off. And I think that's something we can all agree on. They've done it, and that's why I fear that at some point it may come to a full breaking point where America just disintegrates, and I'm sad about that. It's not a good look, but they've been able to pull it off, and I don't know how we get the band back together. That there's some cultural differences, and the culture war it's what's fueling this. I agree with you, Don. That mainly it's the culture war. If we can just learn to respect one another's freedoms, not necessarily subscribe to the freedom, not agree to the freedom, not agree to what you're doing, I should say. But if we can respect the freedom, maybe we'd be at a better place, no matter how much you disagree with it. And that's what I think actual freedom is. We have to respect other people's cultures and other people's way of thinking, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. So if we can get back to that, it'd be great. But I just don't know. And it's very demoralizing every day that goes by. And when I see this country, and I love this country, I'm an American. I'm a proud American, man. I'm a proud New Yorker, proud Bronxite. You know, I love this country. Like, I love the people of the country. And when I see what's going down, it affects me on a different level. And that's why I'm so vocal about it. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I'm trying to tell people there's a fire here. Please help me put this fire out. You know, and I don't know if we can put it out. Sometimes maybe I'm just black pill today, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Tell me whatever you want. But I don't know. We'll keep fighting the fight. We'll keep trying to get a message out there and of unity and acceptance and tolerance and understanding. Because everybody's different. And also of respect, right? I respect. We have to respect things we don't like. If people want to have guns, we need to respect that, right? And same on the other side. If people want to be transgendered, you have to respect that, right? You have to, as long as it's not affecting you, you have to respect it. I don't know, Tony. Take us out of here, man. We got seconds left. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, I agree with you on that. I think I'm more libertarian than anything. I just think if you're not harming anyone, then live your best life. And we ought to have equal justice under the law. We ought to have not necessarily an equal playing field that's manufactured, but the ability to go and pursue happiness. It's in it's in the Declaration of Independence. I think that is a primary foundation of what this experiment was in the American Republic. And, I made comments earlier about mass immigration, and I think that we've always been a nation that welcomed people. But I think the issue has been that we mixed in cultural Marxism, which has been an insidious acid that has been eating away our culture since the 1930s with the introduction of the Frankfurt School. And that ideology is demonic, and it's destroying us from the inside. I think it was a plan to do this and use our differences against us as a weapon. We weaponized people and weaponized beliefs, and that's not really happening around the world. It's mostly concentrated here. So, there's always a way to make it through, though. There's always a way to survive. So I'm not black-pilled in that way. I think, there might be challenges, but there'll be things that pop up and there'll be new opportunities. We'll just play it by ear, day to day.
I'm just black-pilled today, Tony. I'll be fine tomorrow. I won't be black-pilled tomorrow. So today, I just feel that this way in this point in time right now. But thank you for your words of hope.
I'm going to reach in on grabbing that black pill. I'm ripping it out.
Thank you. I needed that. It kind of hurts though a little bit. Don Jeffries, what's up? Give us your thoughts, man, before we get out of here.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank the lovely Deborah Wheeler and Don Lambert and Liz, the Iron Maiden, for wishing me a happy birthday. My birthday's in 3 days, so thanks for remembering that. And
fantastic.
Yeah, I think I was always a live and let live guy, but like someone mentioned in the chat, the only thing I object to on the transgender thing is the fact that when they get children involved, and I think that's very dangerous. And if people want to do that, and they're whatever. I used to be. Was it Marvin Gaye said on his Let's Get It On album? He said I'm for anything between consenting anybody's. That's what I've always thought. But it gets to this point when I think it's disturbing, and even beyond somebody like me, I may be more open-minded on most, but you're going to have many, many millions that are never going to feel that way, no matter what. And that we go even beyond that maybe are not going to accept homosexuality or other things as well. But I think we're really divided, and Trump really was we were already divided. But if you look at what we were before 2016 and we are now, I think you'll see a huge difference. And you're going to see this giant orange thing right in the middle.
Good Lord.
He's the dividing rod. So I would thank you, Piper Fogel. Wish me happy birthday, too. So you guys can, Karen Carpenter, you guys can all do it on Facebook. As my kids used to say, when I sit there and I'll be looking at them all day. So, I can't believe you're watching the dad show. How many birthday wishes you get? I enjoy it. It's a fun time. That's one of the best things still about Facebook is having a birthday there and seeing all the people. And will I get any grade B celebrities to wish me happy birthday? It's a pretty cool thing. So I appreciate that.
Very, very dope. fun fact: I've never, ever had a Facebook page, and I wouldn't know what to do if I ever got on Facebook. I have no idea how to operate the thing. And that's a big thing, considering that most of the world is on Facebook. I protested it from the beginning. I was made to join Twitter because of my wrestling days, so that's why I'm on there. But that's it. That's it, man. Let's get up out of here. Tony Arterburn, the wisest of all the wolves. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can go to tony.gold. That's my website. It's got the links to everything. You can learn more about me if you want to. I don't recommend it, but I'm there. I've got podcasts and I've got businesses. You want gold and silver or Bitcoin? We have that, a new physical location coming up soon. I'm gonna have pictures. I got an old branch bank in Denison, Texas. It's gonna be the coolest project I've ever done.
Fantastic. That's
Come
gonna
visit
be dope. It's I'm gonna go take a tour of the new spot at some point.
Oh, and I'm gonna keep building this. There's a new thing I'm doing on top of that that Billy and I know about. I'm gonna launch it. It's gonna be a sponsor here on the show. You guys are gonna love it.
You are gonna love it.
You are gonna love it, and I'm telling you,
I think that's a thing we can come together on. Everybody is gonna love that.
Everybody,
right.
I promise you, you're gonna love it, and it's gonna be cool. It's the newest thing. I've been working on it for almost 10 years.
Excellent. Kenny Powers, are you the same Kenny Powers from the PW Hustle? What's up, buddy? How you doing? I don't know if you are or aren't, but doesn't give a damn about his birthday. But a happy birthday to Don. I love my birthday too. I love it. I love Christmas so much. It's the best.
Yeah.
What is it? Thanksgiving. I love it. And Halloween, I love that too. So I was telling my wife, like, we're done with the summer. Like, it's Christmas now. Like, that's what I'm looking forward to. I love that. I love birthdays and all of that. I've never been on Facebook, so I don't remember your birthday, but I'm going to try to hit you up in 3 days if I remember. If I don't take offense to it. It's because I forgot.
I'll just think of Bill Clinton, because I had the great honor of sharing a birth date with Bill Clinton. So it's always couldn't be John. I mean, of all people, I couldn't get Kennedy, Bill Clinton. So there you go. Two great Americans.
All right, here we go. Digital Space Goals. BRB does have an OnlyFans. It's called Only Fringe. You go over there and check it out. It's only for the sexy people, ladies and gentlemen. So you can find it. You can tune in. All right, man. We're getting up out of here. Let's see what develops next week. Always something new. There's never a shortage of news. Hey, come check me tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on Tony's X and on my X on Ground Zero Plus, and we're gonna be dissecting some of the news. We're gonna be playing more Michael Wolff. Michael Wolff is killing it. Go check out Michael Wolff, what he's doing over there, and exposing this Epstein nonsense. He said that this summit was basically to distract from Epstein. I don't know how true that is, but that's what he said. Anyway, Tony, play us out if you wish.
You want me to try?
Yeah. If it doesn't work, it's fine.
All right, hold on. We're gonna try to play us out, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna use the email. We're gonna try.
There you go.